Welcome to the Growth with AI podcast hosted by Integrated AI Services. I'm Peter Martinson, and today's episode dives into how AI is redefining the worlds of branding, creativity, and growth strategy. Our guest is Shannon Swimm, founder of Sempre Group, a global growth branding agency bridging design, marketing, and technology to help brands scale authentically in the AI era. Shannon, it's great to have you here.
Thank you so much for having me on.
Yeah. So tell me your story. How did you get started with what you're doing now and getting started in marketing?
The way that I like to say it is that I was really professionally raised as a sort of cog in the New York fashion machine. And I think for a lot of people who know anything about the fashion industry or the retail industry, it's that, you know, it really is a world that demands a lot of speed, technicality, precision, and then subsequently discipline. That environment, first and foremost, above all else, taught me, one, where systems succeed and fail, and, really how excellence depends on operational efficiency. So I worked across a large spectrum of corporate retailers, more specifically, my time at Nordstrom under their corporate structure really shaped my understanding of marketing as it pertains to customer experience. It's really where I learned that service of any kind isn't transactional, it's very much emotional. And it's honestly the most sustainable competitive edge that a business can have. And when I left my last corporate job, which was with a contemporary brand called Vince, I moved into kind of a freelance structure. And then in 2020, 2021, really started to scale the agency component.
So that was kind of brave to go from, a freelance into your own business, like still in the heart of COVID, right? I mean, how did that impact you?
I think when I first started down the proverbial road, I had a concept of what I would be doing and what things would look like. And as time and milestones happened and the landscape inevitably changes as it always does, I really came to understand and realize that what I wanted to build and what I did end up building through that process up until really today is, a structure that kind of challenges what an agency is supposed to look like. I think my biggest concept was trying to approach any venture or any relationship, both client and brand side, is as calm, kind of intentional, quietly powerful. I really started my career in New York. And when I moved away from more corporate verticals, I, you know, existed in my hub within New York throughout the pandemic. And then over time was able to kind of expand bi-coastally to Los Angeles, down south towards Miami. And, over time, I've now been able to come to oversee both domestic and international ventures, which is really exciting. And, you know, I realized through time and experience that what I and now my business partner Danielle wanted to do was really never about chasing scale. It was about building intelligent systems within that kind of let the creativity and the data and like the human insight component coexist. So it really came down to a matter of we don't want to just market brands or market content creators, influencers, et cetera, really want to engineer longevity within those concepts. So I really think it was a matter of trial and error and just kind of finding yourself in different environments over time and kind of figuring out where your parameters and where your bowling bumpers exist through the time that we've had in with our clients and also with any new projects that we've taken on.
Okay. So when you talk about systems, those are can you elaborate a little on those? I mean, it's today, is that software systems? Is that, like project systems to enable the projects to move forward in a certain way? What do you mean by systems?
I think it's all encompassing because Sempre really has what we call a kind of 360 umbrella when it comes to approaching marketing. So we have kind of two divisions that coexist. One would be our marketing and branding development component, and then on the other side, we also have specific management where we right now have a roster of about, I would say, 48 uh, influencer and content creator clients that really require customized systemic approaches to how they're scaling their businesses, how they're engaging with their communities, how they're engaging with other brands. On the branding and marketing side, a lot of that really comes from a desire to create systems or structures within our operations that allow us to approach things from a creative perspective, but also something that's cohesively sound operationally to build out for longevity.
Okay. Interesting. Um, so, with those systems and you're working across multiple geographies, what unique challenges, or opportunities do you have with the systems? And more particularly, for this podcast, have you found a way to use, AI in part of those systems to make them more efficient or make them faster or make them, something to appeal to international or culturally diverse audiences?
Absolutely. So, one of the hardest parts or biggest challenges of growing any type of business or agency in regards to our, experience is being able to kind of preserve quality and depth while expanding our reach. So,
Mhm.
for me personally, that meant developing strong internal systems and kind of empowering the people to lead within those structures that, the people at Sempre. We've really built our foundation on intentional infrastructure, whether that be our SOPs, streamlining our workflows, and kind of creating an operational culture that treats consistency as creativity's best friend, is what I would call it. Over time, I've grown as a founder. I've learned that the hard way, I will say that leadership isn't always about doing everything yourself. It's really about designing systems that make great work repeatable. So, in regards to AI, it's become one of our most valuable partners in the process of scaling with precision. So, for me personally and for our team, we don't necessarily see AI as a replacement for the creative thinking component, but we see
Mhm.
it as an amplifier. So, internally at Sempre, we really utilize AI structures in three key ways. One is always going to be the predictive analytics component. So, being able to identify behavioral trends across campaigns or structures that we're working on with our clients so we can proactively pivot our strategies before any type of performance dips or market shifts take place. Two is going to be content optimization, analyzing any of our visual or copy performance data. That allows us to kind of refine the tone or pacing and really the design in real time. So we're able to be a little bit more efficient from a standpoint of the actual product that we're iterating for our clients. Third, and maybe the most important component, at least for me, is the workflow automation that we've kind of been able to fold in. And we use a number of different softwares, integrated softwares that have AI components. We're also working with a number of CRMs that have current beta structures for
Mhm.
AI implementation. So we are kind of working with those CRMs as a case study component to kind of help them refine the structure as well. But from a standpoint of workflow automation, there's a lot of AI tools that have helped to reduce what I would call administrative bottlenecks. So,
Mhm.
reporting, scheduling, even just internal communications, which I think is an important one that sometimes gets lost in the proverbial sauce when you're really like in knee deep in running a company or working with teams. That communication internally is really vital, and there's a lot of AI systems that you can utilize with platforms that and software components that companies are already using, but maybe don't necessarily have as much literacy over implementing the AI component that we've been able to really kind of hone in on and utilize to our benefit.
Wow. Okay. So you've really pulled it into a lot of your business.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think for us, one of the biggest transformations came when we integrated AI driven, I won't say AI managed analytics, but AI driven analytics into specifically our influencer campaign reporting.
Mhm.
Prior to that, compiling any sort of engagement data across all the different platforms could really take it could take up, a week or more just depending on the size and scale of the campaign itself or the creator itself. With AI automation, visualizations, that process is usually done same day now. And that really frees up our operations and strategy teams to kind of focus on more creative iteration instead of being bogged down by the manual analytics
Right.
component.
Yep.
It really, like, I will say it really changed the completely changed the cadence of how we operate. So, instead of reacting to performance data after a campaign ends, and that's on both, the influencer marketing side and also the brand development side, we're now kind of able to make adjustments in real time. So that's directly improved our retention rate, and our ROI for both the brand and creator clients.
That's the best of both worlds. That's great.
Absolutely. At the end of the day, the real value is kind of like AI's ability to help enhance the space between insights and then execution. Kind of
Mhm.
where the moment where time and context really matter most, that's really been the most derived value that we've taken from kind of implementing these systems.
Okay. Can you walk us through a recent project where AI really made a difference in delivering better outcomes from speed or scale or part of the creativity process?
I can give you a perfect example for something that's happening in real time. We are obviously coming up towards the end of the year. This is a very busy time, both on the creator and any sort of like brand end where they're selling a tangible product or a service during holiday. So you have a lot of campaigns that are kind of simultaneously taking place. We utilize a number of different CRMs, but all of our information kind of lives in Notion. They've recently integrated a new AI database and an AI component that allows that reactivity and those automations to take place internally on the operations end. For example, we have one creator who is currently managing about 15 campaigns that need to roll out in sequence over the next 3 weeks. So, for us being able to integrate the analytics that we have from a standpoint of audience insight, so who's online, who's looking at specific types of content when in relation to this specific creator, and then two, what the actual deliverables are subsequent with each of these campaigns, and being able to use kind of those AI automation tools internally for us to one, be able to map out when these campaigns need to be specifically rolled out within certain time windows that are being iterated to us by the individual brands that we have contracts with. And then second, for us to then be able on the human insight end, take a look at how those will most efficiently be actualized by our clients. So both from a standpoint of like creative iteration. So, as a creative agency, we're able to kind of mull over and talk about ideas endlessly. I think the point at which we decide to do something where that iteration becomes a plan of action is where we then utilize the tools that we have at our disposal, whether that be directly integrated on meta platforms, a lot of the TikTok AI integrations that they're developing now, a lot of them are in beta, but what we do is really utilize them, especially in what we call like sprint periods. So, holiday is obviously a huge sprint period for us to be able to implement those structures more efficiently and make sure that those calendars and those deliverables are being adhered to, and then also being able to track the analytics in real time. So, if we need to pivot or we need to shift strategy kind of mid sprint, that allows us to kind of see things a little bit more efficiently on top of the communications internally happening a little more automated than they normally would. Whereas We're not reacting necessarily on a lag period at this juncture. We're able to really see what's happening in real time, how things are being responded to across multiple platforms because we're able to integrate everything into one cohesive CRM system. And that's all been actualized by AI. This is the first year really that we're able to utilize these tools because they've been refined a bit to be functional. And that's kind of where we're really maximizing our capabilities this season, this holiday season. So that's something that I would note immediately just from a standpoint of insights, because after we get off this lovely interview, I have a on this topic specifically, I have an internal operations meeting to just make sure everything is teed up and ready to go.
Gotcha. That sounds fantastic. AI often raises concerns around, the originality and authenticity of what you're producing, right? The creative side of what you're producing and the brand voice. What do you do internally to make sure that AI supports rather than replaces the human creativity in the work that you're doing?
What I would say to that is really understanding that this generation of creative agency work and management, generally speaking, marketing as a whole is really defined by what I would call fluidity. I think that's a really important thing to note, especially for, just industry direction in totality, as well as like what the kind of future of agencies in the age of AI really looks like. So AI is an enhancement. It's not a replacement for actual work that needs to be done. So having the ability to move more seamlessly between data, the empathy component when you're working with clients, when you're working with brands, and then also the creativity. For us, even as we have specific brand and creator clients, we've also, in the last 2 years, evolved into a relatively formidable white label partner for other agencies. So we help to provide that marketing and management support behind the scenes. We utilize these AI tools and some of these automation systems to help them strengthen their internal systems, to help them improve their client management relationships. And it's one of my pride points because it's a quiet way we've been able to help shape and evolve the industry by making other agencies stronger from within. So utilizing as in leadership and, in operations and in the kind of the industry evolution with AI, you know, thinking of it more as a collaboration as opposed to competition. I think there's a narrative that, we're running against the clock to all be replaced by robots. It's really not that simple. I think when you can prove within all your available resources and all of your available software capabilities that you're able to elevate an ecosystem, that your wins are more valuable. So it's not about being in competition with the AI replacement component. It's really about collaborating and working within those systems and utilizing those tools to better the work that you're already doing.
Okay, nice. So, looking ahead, maybe the next year, it's hard to say 2 to 3 years because I think in 3 years the technology will be so different that we won't really recognize it compared to today. But, maybe in the next year, what do you think is going to be happening, or what do you envision happening in the AI space um, that will impact your agency? And is there any way to prepare for some of those changes?
Preparation is a funny little thing. I think no matter how much throughout my entrepreneurial journey and my journey as a founder and a leader, you can prepare for everything under the sun, moon, and stars, and the landscape is constantly evolving. I think that ability to change and evolve with the evolution of AI is going to be really the strongest component for anybody who kind of works within these structures. I think one of the things that I hope to see, or I believe that we'll see over the next let's call it a year, would be a lot of refinement. I think there's a lot of conversations and a lot of narratives that are happening as new AI systems are hitting the marketplace, as they are kind of being deployed into operational structures. And I think the feedback loop from the agencies or even the individuals who are kind of utilizing these systems is
Right.
going to help to refine the use case scenarios in which they're most efficiently deployed. I think we're going to be able to have a little bit more insight from a standpoint of what is a good use case scenario for AI or automation, as opposed to where it maybe hasn't worked, where those pain points are will become a little bit more apparent. I think when anything is relatively new, yes, there's the shiny component to something that people maybe don't fully understand, and I will be the first to say that there's times where I'm taking a look at certain systems, or I'm being pitched, some sort of new AI integration, and I'm very transparent when I say I have no idea what you're talking about. You're gonna need to not dumb it down, but you're gonna need to make it a little bit more clear from a standpoint of what's my, as an agency who's helping to lead both a, kind of a front end client management team as well as a back end operations team. Where is that implementation taking place, and how does that happen? So what are the steps to success? I think those over the next year more than anything will become more clear. Obviously, we're going to be living in an era of these systems becoming a bit more advanced. Their capabilities are going to continue to evolve, but I think the biggest thing that's going to change over the next year, 2 years, 5 years is going to be refinement. And I think that's going to be the most important component, or the most important variable for people to pay attention to, because if you don't pay attention to where those evolutions and those refining components are taking place, maybe you miss the opportunity. I think, and I say this all the time in the client management component as well as the team leadership component, is, clarity is the highest form of kindness. So, I think that clarity will become a little bit more apparent over time for a lot of people who are just sort of figuring out how they can integrate AI into their workflow, into their brand, into their business model. And I think those structures, as they become a little bit more clear or done better, as everything becomes better over time, structure, when it's done well, gives, well, the human component more room to excel. So I think that's going to be the biggest takeaway.
Gotcha. I agree with you. Absolutely. So, as we start to wrap things up, what do you want people who might hire you to know about you and your agency and the work that you do?
I would say, the one thing that we do is that we operate with sophistication and intention. So, really, for us at Sempre Group, it's about blending high level strategy with deeply personalized execution. So, we're not a traditional marketing firm. It's really a collective of experts who build lasting value through refining strategy. So, we really focus on precise brand positioning and authentic digital storytelling. Our team was really built on experience across luxury, lifestyle, and then also creator driven markets. It's given us the versatility to kind of navigate both corporate partnerships and then the emerging creator economies. So whether we at Sempre Group, whether we're managing global brand launches or are, architecting, operational systems for agencies and influencers, we really approach every project with the same principle. So that's excellence without excess. At its core, we really stand for and believe in the integrity, innovation, and impact of the work that we do. We don't chase trends. We focus on building enduring brands that move with intention and speak quietly with authority. So I would say that's kind of the one thing I would want anybody who's, potentially thinking about working with us to know for sure.
Sounds like a great tagline. Very nice.
I'm good. I will say after 15 years in the, the marketing industry ethos and the brand branding ethos, the one-liners are something I'm becoming well known for.
Good for you. They tend to be the things that we can actually remember long term. So,
That's what I
awesome.
always say. It's the things that you remember most. It's not necessarily the long-winded explanations. It's those little quips that kind of stick with you as there's things from throughout our whole lives we've seen some sort of whether it be a commercial or something that's been said to us, we've listened to an author, a line in a book, a TV show. It's those little things that kind of stick with us. It's that emotional empathy component that really speaks to kind of the human nature of everything.
Yeah. Fantastic. Well, this has been a great discussion. Thank you so much, Shannon. I've appreciated having you on the show.
I really appreciate the time, and I thank you for the wonderful conversation and allowing me to kind of hold on to my emotional support cappuccino throughout the conversation. Listen, I'm a Northeast girl through and through, and I even now I have a tendency to really iterate and communicate with my hands. So I always like to usually when I'm speaking with anybody in a meeting, an interview, etc. I like to hold on to something to kind of keep it more controlled.
Yeah. Well, you did a great job.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate the time.
Yes, and maybe we'll talk to you again, have you on the show in a year, and see how your agency's doing and the new changes you've had.
I would love that and bring my business partner or somebody else from the team on and you can get a yet another Sempre Group perspective.
Wonderful. Well, it's been a great conversation. We've enjoyed having you, and we'll see you somewhere on the internet.
Sounds like a plan. I'm sure you're already seeing some things out there. So
Yep.
you'll be here. You'll be sure to hear from us in one way or the other.
Fantastic. Well, take care, and we'll talk to you again sometime.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Yep.